reading his great. Dr. Rasika is a senior lecturer at the Department of Business Management, Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. He holds a PhD in Enterprise Management from Wuhan University of Technology 2018 and MBA in Human Resource Management from the University of Colombo and a BSc in Business Administration Special from the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. An associate member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management Sri Lanka, he also completed the professional qualification in Human Resource Management. He has published over 30 research work in index journal and conference proceedings, earning accolades such as the 2022 Emerald Literary Outstanding Paper Award and the most cited research award from the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka in 2022. His work appears in Social Science Citation Index, Scopus, and Emerging Sources Citation Index with 600 plus Google Scholar citations as of April 2025. So, here onwards, the platform is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. And it's a great pleasure for me to take part in this wonderful series, Thesis Mastery Program, which was designed by the Department of Accountancy and Finance, and would like to thank the initiators of this program, such as Professor Jayanta Devasiri and Professor Ushan Piris, and the other team members, those who did this wonderful program. And then would like to thank Professor Atula also for always supporting these kind of initiatives. So let me share one of the key areas that we need to master when we do a thesis. I know all the students, those who are here, not all the students, like almost all the students, or most of the students, had a tough time to decide this particular areas, like especially justification of research problem. Still, I think there is a good set of students, those who want to finalize this area in order to pass the research proposal process. Okay, so let me share the slideshow, and please let me know whether you can see the slideshow. We have almost like 2 hours and little bit more. So within that short period of time, let me try my level best to practically give you ideas how you can do this. Okay, how you can do this. So I'm going to focus on research topic, problem, questions, objectives, and I'll talk a little bit of conceptual framework and hypothesis. Okay. So during this time period, I'll bring one of my students to showcase a practical example of how to justify a research problem too. Okay. So then with me, I have Sahan Perra from Department of Business Management. And Sahan will show you a practical, real case of a research problem justification. So let's move forward. And during this session, I'm going to help you to answer 5 questions. So all of you will be able to answer these 5 questions if you carefully be with the session. So the first one is how to generate research topic or area or research ideas. Okay. Now, this is not developing the research title. Okay. This is about identifying a good researchable area or research topic. Okay. Once we have done that, then we will move to how to formulate or justify a research problem. Thereafter, we will touch research questions and research objectives. That is, how can you set research questions and research objectives? Finally, I'll touch on developing conceptual framework and hypothesis. I hope that the path is clear, and unfortunately, we cannot interact, but still, I'll try my level best to give it as clearly as possible. හරි. දැන් අපි අද කතා කරන්න යන්නේ ඇත්තටම රිසර්ච් එකක තියෙන ප්‍රධානම දෙයක්. අපි හිතුවොත් එහෙම රිසර්ච් එක කියලා කියන්නේ දුම්රියක් කියලා. රිසර්ච් ප්‍රොබ්ලම් එක නැත්නම් අපි අයිඩෙන්ටිෆයි කරන රිසර්ච් ටොපික් ඒරියා එක කියලා කියන්නේ හරියට ඒ දුම්රිය එන්ජින් එක. එතකොට මේ එන්ජින් එක හරියට තිබුණ නැත්නම් අපිට ගමනාන්තයට යන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක නිසා this is a crucial part. Okay? And this is the most stressful part of a research also. For a novel researcher, identification of these things, especially the research area and the research problem justification, those two are the most stressful areas that has to be finalized. Okay? And further, I will not touch a different level. I'll touch as much as possible an undergraduate level. Okay? So there are certain things that we can discuss in detail and advanced areas, but we will not touch those things. And we will basically, I'll cover the areas that where you need to know and the practical aspects of how to do it too. Now let's see the first one, how to generate research topic or how to identify your research area. So when we answer this question, how to generate a good research topic or strong research topic, then it's better if we can focus on seven main things. Let me start with the first one, which is very important, and it's a crucial thing. Okay? So the first thing is, in order to do a good research, to identify a good research area, we have to have thorough understanding or good understanding of research methodology knowledge. Okay? Every one of us, we need to know certain basic things in research. If we don't know that, it will be very difficult to identify a good research topic. So now, let's see what sort of basic things that we need to know. The first thing is, we have to understand why do we do a research? Why do we do a research? But before we do a research, we have to have the understanding of a key concept. The concept is knowledge. We have to understand what is knowledge. If we have this understanding, then we will understand what a research is. Then if we understand what a research is, it will be easy to understand the research topic or identification of a research topic and justifying a research problem. So if we ask the question, what's knowledge? It's not a very difficult concept to understand. Knowledge means there are various definitions, but let's see it in a very simple manner. Simply, knowledge is what we know about our real world or what we know about the reality. Oxford Dictionary definition is knowledge is the sum of what is known. Okay? So there is something that we know that is known as knowledge. Okay? So then if there is a part that we know, there is another part that we don't know. So there is known things as well as unknown things in this world. So the known things is regarded as knowledge. Nonaka defines it as justified true belief. justified true belief. Okay. Those are not just belief. Those are justified true belief. Okay. So simply, if we take what is knowledge, knowledge is the things that we know. So these things that we know are two types. One is scientific knowledge, the other one is non-scientific knowledge. And in our discussions, say, we have learned from the small days sciences. Okay? Science, Vidyawa කියලා කියන්නේ, it's a systematically organized body of knowledge on a particular subject. Okay? So that's a science. So then we have different sciences like even economics, then physical sciences, biology, chemistry. All these things are sociology, psychology. These are sciences. Okay? And these sciences is a collection of knowledge in that particular area, particular subject. Okay? So this science is developed based on scientific knowledge. Then we need to understand what is scientific knowledge and what is non-scientific knowledge. Scientific knowledge means the knowledge derived or generated by using something known as scientific method. Scientific method. Okay? So if we know certain things and we have not used scientific method to generate that knowledge, we call that knowledge as non-scientific knowledge. Okay? So if we have used the scientific method and generated the knowledge which is known as scientific knowledge, then the other knowledge that we know, but we have not utilized scientific method, that is known as non-scientific knowledge. Now, for example, if we say, if my grandmother, now she can cook a polos curry deliciously. She has knowledge about how to cook a polos curry. So that knowledge, we cannot regard it as scientific knowledge because she has not utilized scientific method to generate that knowledge. Okay? So then that is known as non-scientific knowledge. Now in research, we have to apart this non-scientific part aside, we have to take it aside and we have to focus on the scientific knowledge. Okay? Scientific knowledge. When it comes to scientific knowledge, then we need to understand what is the scientific method. It's not a big deal. Scientific method is arriving at conclusion based on data or empirical evidences. Okay? Arriving at conclusions based on empirical evidences. Okay? So if we use empirical evidences, that means data, practical data, and we come into conclusions based on practical data, that process is known as usage of scientific method. Okay? So in management, if we take any stream of management, the knowledge, mostly it is based on scientific knowledge. Okay? So knowledge is scientific knowledge. For example, in general management, we talk about motivation. There we have two-factor theory. Right? Two-factor theory. Hygiene factors and motivational factors. So that knowledge is a result of research. So in research, what we use is we use scientific method. So then we can simply say scientific knowledge is the knowledge that has been generated by doing research, by doing scientific research. Okay? So now our focus is not the non-scientific part, but the scientific part. Okay? I hope that it is clear. If I give you a summary, දැනුම කියලා කියන්නේ අපි දන්නා දේ. එතකොට දන්නා දේ වගේම නොදන්නා දේත් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේ දන්නා දේ අපි කොටස් දෙකකට බෙදා ගන්නවා. එකක් scientific knowledge, විද්‍යාත්මක දැනුම, අනිත් එක තමයි විද්‍යාත්මක නොවන දැනුම. ඒතර මේ විද්‍යාත්මක දැනුම කියන එකේදී විද්‍යාත්මක දැනුම කියන්නේ විද්‍යාත්මක ක්‍රමය පාවිච්චි කරලා ගොඩනගාගත්ත දැනුම. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් පර්යේෂණ ආශ්‍රයෙන් ගොඩනගාගත්ත දැනුම කියලා. So then මේ knowledge එක කියලා අපි කතා කරන්නේ scientific knowledge. So this knowledge So there are certain things that we know, and there are certain things that we don't know scientifically. Say, for example, a general example, till today, no researcher has developed a real cure for cancers. Okay? We don't know that. As a whole, means as all the researchers in the medical field, they don't know exact treatment for cancer. So that is the not known part or unknown part. Now, there is a relationship between, or the interlink between knowledge and research. So this, I said that there is a part that is unknown. So uncovering of this unknown is known as research. Okay? Uncovering the unknown is known as research. Being in universities, one of our main duty is to uncover the unknown, or otherwise generate new knowledge, generate new scientific knowledge. Okay? So the process of generating this new knowledge is known as research. Now, research, if we take, it's a problem-solving process. And in the previous session also, you got to know this. So therefore, I won't explain much. But what's the problem that we are going to solve in research? We are going to solve a knowledge problem. Knowledge problem. There is something that we don't know, and that's the problem. Now, we are going to uncover that unknown. So then we are going to solve a problem. So therefore, research is known as finding or generating or producing new knowledge. What knowledge? New scientific knowledge. Okay. So it will be scientific since in research, what we do is we use a systematic process. Okay. So we use scientific inquiry, investigation, examination, experimentation, and all these things. Putting all these together, we use scientific method in research. Okay. So it's a systematic process of generating or producing new knowledge, we can say. Okay. That's why we need to understand when we identify a research topic, as well as when we justify research problem, we should know what are we going to do. Okay. Simply, we have to figure out what is unknown in our field. What is unknown? දන්නේ නැත්තේ මොනවද කියලා අපි දැනගන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට මේ දන්නේ නැති දෙයක් දන්නා දෙයක් බවට පරිවර්තනය කරන ක්‍රියාවලිය තමයි බොහොම සිස්ටමැටිකලි කරන ක්‍රියාවලිය තමයි රිසර්ච් කියලා කියන්නේ. එතකොට ඔයගොල්ලෝ රිසර්ච් එකක ටොපික් එකක් හොයාගන්නකොට උනත් ප්‍රොබ්ලම් එක ජස්ටිෆයි කරගන්නකොට උනත් මෙන්න මේ අයිඩියා එක හොඳට ඔළුවේ තියෙන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට දන්නවා අපි මොකද්ද කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා. මේ අයිඩියා එක නැති වුණොත් අපිට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ මොකද්ද කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා. මං හිතනවා දැන් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට හොඳ අදහසක් ඇති කියලා. මොකද්ද මේ knowledge කියලා කියන්නේ? ඊට පස්සේ knowledge එකේ part දෙකක් තියෙනවා. scientific, non-scientific. ඊට පස්සේ අපි research කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා කතා කරා. හරි. මේකත් එක්ක අපි ඉස්සරහට යන්න. Then we should know what sort of things that we need to do in the whole research. Okay, whole research. I think all of you have studied your research methodology course. So then I don't need to go through all these things, but get a big picture of what we have to do in the whole process is this. Okay. Now, fundamental thing is we have to do a literature review. That is, we need to review what has been done up to now in my particular field that I select to do the study. Okay, interested area is there. So now අපි උදාහරණයකට හිතමු මට ඕනි නම් green behaviors ගැන study කරන්න. එතකොට මම green behaviors ගැන literature review කරන්න ඕනේ. Without doing literature review, we will not be able to do most of the, like almost all the phases of research. Okay, so then it's a must. Now you will get to know how to do a literature review in the next session. Okay, in the next session. But today, my focus is about this phase 1, that is formulating research problem, developing research questions and objectives, developing hypotheses or propositions. Hypotheses we develop in quantitative research, and propositions we develop in qualitative research. In certain qualitative research, we can't see propositions also. And then conceptualization and operationalization also comes under quantitative research. Okay. So then, if you are doing a qualitative research, some of the things that I discuss in this, especially the latter part, is not that relevant. But the initial phases are crucial for both types of research, qualitative or quantitative. Okay. So I hope that you have studied about these things in your research methodology class. So we'll see some of the practical things. Okay. Then phase 2, we have the literature review as well. Then phase 2 is about developing your research design. There you have to decide about methodology of your research and your methods, and there are so many other things in this space. Okay. If we take the proposal of a research, actually, you have to do phase 1, phase 2 plus literature review. Okay. So then that is the research proposal. Now, if you do this phase 1 appropriately, most of the headache in your research is gone. Okay. Phase 1 එක හරියට කරොත් එහෙම වාට රිසර්ච් එකේ තියෙන headache එක සෑහෙනම අයින් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. අනිත් ඒවා එච්චර අමාරු නෑ. මේ area එක තමයි පොඩ්ඩක් gray area එකක් විදියට තියෙන්නේ. Okay. So then phase 3, it's about your data collection, data analysis, and then you analyze and you find out results and findings, and then you discuss the findings. Okay. And the final phase is, it's about arriving at conclusions and then providing implications and providing future research directions also. And finally, extra work, that is, you go for a publication. That is the new knowledge that you have derived, you are going to disseminate it to the other researchers as well as public. Okay. So that would be the best thing that if you all can do it. I think this total process of TNP, Thesis Mastery Program, will give you tips and tools to do the publication also. Yeah, that's the best part of this whole process or the program. Okay. Right now, we know the research process also. At the same time, you have to have a better understanding about different types of research. I think in the first session, Ms. Shanika explained very well about this first categorization, pure research and applied research, pure research and applied research. And then if you look at, when you do a research, you can have different approaches, like basically 2 approaches, deduction and induction. Okay. And then there are 3 types of research based on the information need: exploratory, descriptive, and explanatory. Then based on methodology, we have quantitative, qualitative, and we have the third category, which is known as mixed method research. In terms of the time duration that we use for the research, or the way that the time utilization, we have longitudinal research as well as cross-sectional research. Now, say for example, if somebody is doing a quantitative research, that is, you're going to look at impact of certain variables on another variable. Okay, so that can be, that is basically a deductive research. Okay. It will fall under the category of explanatory research, and it will be a quantitative research. It can be either cross-sectional or longitudinal, but depending on the time constraint that we have, most of our undergraduate research, almost all, will be cross-sectional research, means we take a snapshot of that particular time period. Okay. Now, if somebody is doing qualitative research, basically the reasoning approach will be induction, and it will be fall more into exploratory category. Okay. And it will be qualitative. It can be either cross-sectional or longitudinal. As I told you earlier, it will be cross-sectional in most of the cases. And this research can be applied or pure. Right? Applied or pure. I believe that we have set the foundation to discuss about the other areas. But mind you, the first thing is, if we want to select a good research topic, we have to have a better understanding about research methodology knowledge. So up to now, what I have just focused on knowledge, then scientific knowledge. Yeah. What is research? That is uncovering the unknown or producing new knowledge. Then research process plus different types of research. Right now, if you don't know these things better, it's always better you go back to your basic notes and do a thorough study and have some group discussion and get to know the terminologies in research. That will be important. Okay? That's so important. Of course, there's one question like, can you share this PPT? Yes, of course, can be done. And then there is another question like, please explain types of research again. Okay. Unfortunately, I will not discuss much about what is research because it's the framework is there. Now it's all up to you. Say, for example, now if you use generative AI tools, if you just type these words, then you will be able to get to know. Okay, get to know. I just wanted to give you that, right, we have to have this understanding. Otherwise, we will not be able to find out a good research topic, or else we might not be able to do a good research problem justification. I'm sorry, due to time constraint, I'm not going to detail into these things because if I go into details into these different types of research, so then our main purpose cannot be achieved. Okay, but generally, in any research, what we try to do is we generate knowledge. Now, especially in pure research, we generate knowledge. And in applied research, we have practical problem and we generate knowledge to sort out that practical problem. Okay. So please excuse me for not being able to explain these things in detail. Okay. Right. Now, the second thing that we need to do when we want to find out a good research topic is knowing the institutional standards. Okay. Now, say, for example, if you are from management faculty or if you are from any other university, so then better you go through or get to know the institutional standards, like, say, for example, what disciplines are accepted. Now, if we take Department of Marketing Management, okay, what areas are allowed to be researched? Now, can they research something related to agriculture, okay, or farming if it is not relevant to marketing? So then you better look at what are the disciplines which are accepted in your particular program or in your faculty. That is number one. Okay, you can't pick something which is not accepted by your institute. That is critical. And then research orientation. Look at your faculties or departments research orientation also. Now, when it comes to Faculty of Management Studies, we allow qualitative as well as quantitative research and even mixed method research. No worries. Okay. And certain departments, say for example, accountancy and finance, most of the research will be quantitative because you have to work with quantitative data. Then in certain areas like maybe tourism, there can be qualitative research, more qualitative research too. Yeah. So get to know what is expected by the institute. Then the time schedule. What is the time limit and we have to do the research? You have to have a better understanding. Otherwise, we might not be able to come up with the feasible research. Okay. So that's a very simple thing. It's not a big deal to understand these institutional standards. Okay. Right. The first thing is we have to have the knowledge about research methodology. And second thing is we should know institutional standards. So all these things are actually, before you start searching your research topic, you have to have these fundamentals with you. Okay. So next thing is you have to select a discipline to work with. Discipline in the sense, say, for example, are you looking at branding? Okay. Are you looking at social media marketing? Okay. Are you looking at employee green behavior? Are you looking at carbon footprint? Okay. Are you looking at, say, broadly sustainability? Okay. Are you looking at sustainable tourism? Or are you looking at, we say, uh, new areas in tourism, maybe, say, digital nomads tourism? Okay. So likewise, you have to pick the discipline, right? When you pick the discipline, just see, it has to be interesting to you. Okay? It has to be interesting to you. Okay? If it is not interesting to you, so there is no point, right? So you have to pick something that you can live with. Okay? It should be interesting to you. There are certain subject areas that you are really interested in. Choose that kind of a subject area. Okay? Don't select a subject area that you can't uh, means that you can't love. Then the next thing is see whether the discipline that you are selecting is linked to your career progression. Okay. If you have decided, like being final years or third years, you may have decided your career, pick a discipline which has a link to your career. Your career and your research, if it is merged or if it is linked, that will give you a big boost. Okay, because it will help you in the future too, not in the immediate future. Immediate future, you will finish the degree, but in the future, you'll be benefited if you choose your discipline for the research congruence with your career. To tell you one example, one of my current students, now that student is really keen about being a chartered accountant. Okay? So accountancy is the field. So then she came up with a research idea of green human resource management. So then it was not established well. And then we had a chat, then got to know her career objectives also. Then I also suggested, why don't you pick a research area which is congruent to your career? Then thereafter, she identified a good area, which is known as human capital accounting. Human capital accounting. So human capital accounting is a new area and it's a challenging area also. Now she's going to become a chartered accountant and she's now doing something related to human capital accounting. It is relevant to accounting and it is one of the branches of accounting. Okay. So it's another plus point to have your discipline and your career merge. And simply, it should be something that you can really love, because you had to spend a lot of time in this research and you had to have continuous commitment to do the research. So therefore, you have to love it. Right? හොඳට ආදරය කරන්න බැයි නම් දිගු කාලීන සම්බන්ධතා තියාගන්න බෑ. දැන් රිසර්ච් එක කරනකොට අපි දිගු කාලීන සම්බන්ධතාවයක් තියාගන්න ඕනේ රිසර්ච් එකත් එක්ක. එතකොට ඒ රිසර්ච් ඩිසිප්ලින් එකට ආදරය කරන්නේ නැත්නම් ලව් කරන්නේ නැත්නම් ඒකේ ඉන්න බෑ. ඩිවෝර්ස් කරගන්න. හරි? ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක නිතැතින්ම වෙනවා. ඒක සුපර්වයිසර් කෙනෙකුට ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ ඩිපාර්ට්මන්ට් එකේ කාට හරි යාළුවන්ට ඔයාව පුෂ් කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන් එකක් නෙවෙයි. okay self motivation එකක් ගේන්න නම් අනිවාර්යෙන්ම ඔය research topic එක especially the discipline එක අනිවාර්යෙන් ඔයාලට හොඳට කැමති area එකක් වුණොත් තමයි හොඳ. okay right දැන් තුනයි. knowledge එක තියෙන්න ඕන research right institutional standards දැනගන්න ඕනි. ඊට පස්සේ discipline එකක් අපි select කරගන්න වෙනවා. okay right next one in that particular discipline okay observe what are the practical problems that you can see right in the industry. okay? In the industry what are the practical problems that you can see, just observe. okay and so how can you identify the practical problems? First thing is you can discuss with experts okay in the industry as well as academics, those who are doing research in that particular area. okay it's a must. Then you will be able to identify what are the problems that they encounter. okay so you are studying in university but you don't have real connection with the industry, so then how can you get to know what are the real problems that they have? okay so then you need to consult managers in the industry and academics, those who are dealing with the industry plus doing research. Then they also know what are the current problems that are there. Why it is important to base management research in a practical problem is that if you can sort out the practical problem, or if there is a lack of knowledge to sort out the practical problem, if you can develop the knowledge, so that knowledge is crucial to the practitioners, to the industry. So then your significance of the research will be much higher if you are focusing on a practical problem, because your research will allow the practitioners to sort out the problem. So then your research will be valuable. ඔයාගේ research එක ගොඩක් වටිනවා industry එකේ තියෙන නියම ප්‍රශ්නයක් විසඳන්න ඒගොල්ලන්ට knowledge එක නැති වෙලාවක ඒ knowledge එක ඔයාලට generate කරලා දෙන්න පුළුවන් නම් research එක හරහා එතකොට ඔයාගේ research එකට තියෙන වටිනාකම ඉතාමත් වැඩි වෙනවා practically. Because research has to be linked to practice, which is a deficiency in Sri Lanka. ලංකාවේ තියෙන මදිපාඩුවක් තමයි ඒක. ගොඩාක් research practice එකට orient කරනවා අඩුයි. ඒක නිසා management research කරනකොට විශේෂයෙන්ම if we can base our research on a practical problem, it's always better. Okay? Right. So then, in order to identify these practical problems in your selected discipline, you'll be able to read a lot of reports, different reports. Okay? Maybe central bank report, maybe different other reports published, okay, or magazines. Then you'll be able to identify problematic areas in your particular field. And plus, you can scan the media, different media like social media, such as YouTube, Facebook, and even newspapers, right? And even television news will be a point to start. Right? Now, to tell you a practical example, now for my master's study, I did a research about joint consultative councils, which is practice in Sri Lanka in BOI zones. Okay? JCCs is a counter mechanism to trade unions. Okay? Now, I got to know this problem by going through one of the BOI reports. Okay? So then it'll be always better. You have to have a good idea about what sort of different practical problems available in the discipline that you are interested in. Okay? So do that also. Observe practical problems in that particular area. Okay? So having the research knowledge, knowing the institutional guidelines, and then choosing the discipline that you love, and then observe practical problems in that particular area. Okay? Now, by having all these things, then what you can do is you can start broadly, right? Broadly. You can start broadly and you can cascade your area or narrow down it into a narrowed area. Okay? So this is known as going from mass to niche. I'll give you one example. Right? Say, for example, I'm interested in sustainability. Okay? So that is my practical area or the pet area that I really like about sustainability. Now, if you have eco-business management students, you will love to, most of you will love to touch about sustainability because that is your bread and butter. If you look at sustainability, that's a broad concept. Okay? It's a broad concept. And this broad concept, you can narrow it down to, say, sustainability has 3 pillars, and then you can focus on environmental sustainability. Okay? So then environmental sustainability have two categories: domestic category as well as workplace environmental sustainability. So now you can cascade it down or narrow it down to corporate greening or corporate sustainability. Even from sustainability, you are focusing on corporate greening, okay? Environmental sustainability. Now you have come to the workplace. So here, corporate greening. So then in corporate greening, you have different functional areas like green supply chain management, green marketing, green HR, and green accounting. Likewise, there are different areas. Now you can narrow it down to, you'll say, in this case, green human resource management. Okay, green human resource management. When it comes to green human resource management, that's a new, relatively new area to Sri Lanka, new area. So you get green human resource management policies as well as practices, right? So then you may narrow it down to green human resource management practices. When it comes to practices, it's always about behaviors. So then you can go for environmental green behaviors or employee green behaviors. Okay. So employee green behaviors. So employee green behaviors are also 2 types: required green behavior or task green behavior, and voluntary employee green behavior. So then ultimately you can think about research that you can do about not all the other things in sustainability, but specific area, voluntary employee green behavior. Okay. So likewise, whatever the subject area that you study, start it from the broadest area. It's okay, fine. Okay. But don't try to identify a research from at the broadest area. So then you cascade down it or narrow it down to the lowest level as much as possible. So then you can identify a nice area to do a research. Okay. We'll say now, if you want to do literature review, now don't do the literature review about sustainability. You have to have an idea about sustainability, but your literature review will be 100% focused on not the other behaviors, voluntary employee green behaviors. Then you'll be able to identify what literature that I need to read also. Okay. So this approach is known as funnel approach. Again, පුනීලයක් වගේ ඉස්සෙල්ලාම කට ලොකුයි අන්තිමට එනකොට පොඩි. يعني broad පටන් අරගෙන narrow down කරගන්න ඕනේ. Okay, so ඒකත් කරා. Then the 5th one is, once we know the practical issues, right, practical problem, and once we have narrowed down the research area, then we have to resort to literature. Okay. Literature means the previously published knowledge in that particular area. Okay, in that particular area. So when you resort to literature, you have to read, like you have to have the idea that in order to get to know a good research area or to find out a good research problem, you can read different types of papers in the literature. Okay, different types of papers. Like there are 4 types of papers. Empirical papers are there. That is, researchers, they collect data and they come into conclusions and they publish. Okay. Data, real data collection එකක් තියෙනවා. So the empirical papers කියලා කියන්නේ real data collection එකක් කරලා ඒකෙන් research publication එකක් කරන එක. Okay. And there are some other papers like conceptual papers, සංකල්පනාත්මක පත්‍රිකා තියෙනවා. ඒවැදී they have not collected data, but they are introducing a new concept. Okay. And the other one is meta-analysis. So in meta-analysis papers, what they do is Especially we can see this meta-analysis in quantitative research. In quantitative research, previously published empirical papers, they have analyzed all the data in the other papers, and they are publishing a paper which contains data from so many research. Okay? And then the fourth one is review papers, literature review papers. Review papers review the previously published papers in a particular area, and they publish the total picture. Okay? In these papers, in all these papers, you can get to know a very good clue to start a research. You can get an idea. Now, say, for example, if I have narrowed down my research from sustainability to employee green behavior, voluntary employee green behavior, then I find out literature, empirical papers, conceptual papers, meta-analysis papers, and review papers relevant to voluntary employee green behavior. Okay? When I collect all these literature, then I can look at 2 points. One is we have to look at FRD. FRD means in any research, at the latter part of the research article or paper, there is something known as future research directions. Right? Future research directions are also based on the limitations of those papers. So then we can look at this future research direction section as well as limitation section. Then we'll be able to get to know, right, what are the future research that we have to do. At the same time, if you deal with journals, and these journals, they will have call for papers. Call for papers කියලා කියන්නේ තව ඊළඟ අවුරුද්දේ වගේ පබ්ලිෂ් කරන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ ආටිකල්ස් එකතු කරන්න ඇට්‍රැක්ට් කරගන්න ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇඩ්වර්ටයිස් කරලා දෙනවා. ඒවට අපි කියනවා call for papers. කියන්නේ අනාගතයේදී පබ්ලිෂ් කරන්න තියෙන වොලියුම් එකක ආටිකල්ස් ඒගොල්ලෝ ඇට්‍රැක්ට් කරගන්න try කරනවා. If you read those call for papers, right, editors notes, so then once again you'll be able to identify what are the real needed areas to do a research in a particular field. Okay, so those are some practical tips rather than worrying about okay what to do and wondering about I don't have a research to do. Go through this process, you'll be able to identify a good hint that you can proceed. And if you find out this future research from the future research directions or from the call for papers, and those will be new research areas. So then you don't have any doubt about whether you are reinventing the wheel. Again, අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කියනවා reinventing the wheel කියලා කියන්නේ දැන් මිනිස්සු wheel එක රෝදේ හොයාගත්තනේ. රෝදේ හොයාගත්ත එක ආපහු හොයාගන්න එකේ ඒකම රෝදේ ආපහු හොයාගන්න එකේ වැඩක් නැහැ. ඒ රෝදේ improve කරලා තමයි හොයාගන්නේ. එතකොට එහෙමනම් අපි දැනට කරන researchers ලගේ දේවල් දැනගෙන එතනින් එහා එකක් අල්ලගන්න පුළුවන් නම් definitely you are doing a means you are finding out a knowledge gap. හොඳ gap එකක් හොයාගන්න පුළුවන්. Okay, so ඒක නිසා මේක බලන්න ඒක practically ගොඩක් වටිනවා නිකන් ඔහේ research topic එකක් ගේනවට වඩා. Then when you refer these articles, don't refer, if you're doing it in 2025, don't refer articles, don't get future research directions from the articles published before 2022. The reason is, by now, other researchers in the world, if they have mentioned it in 2022, by now, most probably it has been touched by others. Okay? So therefore, in order to get a fresh idea, you have to read the recent literature. And at the same time, look at the past projects and reports also. In your same university and in other universities, what are the latest research done by your means university students, maybe master's students? They might not have published in reputed journals, but those are available in conference proceedings and in other international conferences, okay, maybe in libraries as research, right? So then you'll be able to identify, okay, what sort of things have been done by our previous students and what is left to be done. Okay? You can get some ideas from those research also, right? All in all, when you go to this literature, okay, uh, to find out best research work, you can think of associating these kind of good publishers or good databases, okay, or publishers. We'll say Emerald, Sage, Science Direct, Taylor and Francis, Fringe, Wiley, EBSCO-Host, Elsevier. So likewise, there are reputed journals, reputed journal publishers. So they have journals. And to get to know about journals, you can get to know what are the good journals in your particular area. You have to do a search and find out. Say, for example, now in accounting, uh, these are some of the world leading journals. Okay? Finance, HR, when it comes to HR, International Journal of Human Resource Management, Human Relations, Human Resource Management, Human Resource Management Reviews. These are among the top lists. Now, in order to get to know about good journals, means very high quality journals, you can refer to ABDC list, Australian Business Deans uh, Council list, and SSCI Social Science Citation Index. Okay. So then, uh, likewise, you have to associate your particular area journals. Okay. Now, if you are into, say, sustainability, then associate or get to know what are the good journals in sustainability related uh, topics. Okay. So if it is tourism, what are the tourism related best journals in the world? Not only best journals, like you have to associate the best journals because you can get the best ideas from those journals. Okay. Then you have to download the latest version. So you don't need to download. You can go there and just see. Like downloading, there is an issue. But if you have an interest in downloading papers, or if you know the DOI, digital objective identifier, so then you'll be able to get the assistance of your supervisors to get to download the papers. Okay. Now, what I want to tell you is, like, having just a practical problem is not enough. We have to resort to literature to find out good research areas too. Okay. Uh, Right. So there are two questions like, can you explain how to justify performance gap by video analysis? Okay. And then can you give us some examples, websites where we can find research papers? Okay. Uh, I think you can use these things to get to know that rather than just using Google Scholar. But in Google Scholar, you can use, and then the tip is like this. If you find out the latest review paper in your particular area, you can get to know almost the best work that has been done up to that point. Okay. Why? In the reference list of the review paper or any empirical paper, any new empirical paper, they will show you the cited work. Okay. And details are there. Then you'll be able to find out those articles. Okay. It's not a big deal because if you find out any review paper in 2025, published in 2025, if you go to the reference list of that, then you'll be able to get to know the most of the best articles in that particular area. Okay. So likewise, try to find out good literature. Okay. So there are ways and means to do. Right. Okay. So then look at the feasibility thereafter. Right. Now you know there is a practical problem and you have narrowed down your study area, and you have done the good literature review. So then from the literature, you'll be able to identify, okay, these are the best research topics that I can study, and then see the feasibility. Look at the feasibility of doing that particular study. When you look at the feasibility, look at whether there is a good supervisor to supervise your identified research, okay? Identified research topic. Identified in the sense, maybe the practical problem, or you have identified it through the literature. එතකොට ඉස්සෙල්ලාම බලන්න එකක් ඔයාගේ අලුත් රිසර්ච් ඒරියා එකක් නම් ඒ රිසර්ච් ඒරියා එක සුපර්වයිස් කරන්න රිසර්ච් සුපර්වයිසර් කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා කියලා. පොටෙන්ෂල් සුපර්වයිසර් කෙනෙක්. Potential supervisor කෙනෙක් නැත්නම් it will be difficult to do it. But don't worry, at undergraduate level, you'll be able to do most of the topics that you have, because we have multiple like experts in multiple disciplines. Okay, so and a research supervisor should be really good in research methodology. Okay? That's the main thing. But it will be a plus point if the research supervisor has the domain knowledge also. Okay, so just look at whether there is a good potential supervisor. And then the other thing is, look at time. There are certain topics that you can't study within 3 to 4 months of time period that you have to do the study. So then think about time. So therefore, it should not be a very broad one. It should be something manageable. And the other thing is, look at access to data, whether you can access the data. Say, for example, certain research are there, like especially about negative behaviors. Negative behaviors, like we say misconducts, discipline violations, or we say bullying. Now we say people engage in bullying in workplaces. Okay? Then if you want to study why people do bullying in workplaces, we have to ask, or we have to get the data from the people who do bullying. Now, since this is a negative behavior, there is a question mark whether the people, those who engage in bullying, whether they will tell us the truth. Okay? Whether we can access real data. There is a question mark. So therefore, it's a bit tricky to do that particular research, because you will not be able to find out good data. And in certain cases, you may find out that certain organizations, they are doing like they have a problem. If you look at it from outside, okay, now you want to collect data, internal data. You need to get internal data to complete your research. But if the management is not giving you the data, then you can't do it. Okay? So therefore, look at the feasibility also. And another example, very recently, one of our students wanted to do about research about differently able people. Okay? Differently able people. And when we question, like, she want to get data from deaf persons as well as blind persons. Okay? So then, so collection of data in that kind of a form is difficult, as well as there are ethical concerns also. So then, rather than picking those kind of things for your thesis, right, within 4 months, you can collect data from deaf and blind people, no worries, but it might take time. Within your time period, you have to think about the access of the data and the other resources, like financial resources and the support that you need from various institutes, especially from your department and all those things. Just see whether it is also there to do that particular research. And then in your research area, just see whether it's matching your strengths also. Now, if you want to do quantitative research, you have to have a better statistical knowledge and analytical capabilities. At the same time, if you want to do qualitative research, your ability to do in-depth interviews, okay? And plus ability to conceptualize as well as synthesize data should be higher. And your capability of writing should also be higher when it comes to qualitative data, okay? Qualitative research. So therefore, just see whether your research area that if you're going to do a quantitative one or qualitative one, whether it matches your strengths too. Okay, so look at the feasibility too. Then finally, if you have identified the area, if it is feasible, then before finalizing it, pitch it to others. Right? You have to do a sales pitch. Okay? So to do that, what you can do is you can write the whole idea into one paragraph, okay? With, we'll say, maximum 100 words or 150 words. Write clearly the problem that you're going to address and the objectives and the methodology in brief. Okay, in brief. And then what you can do is you can look at whether this risk practitioner perspective එකයි දෙකම ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ perspective දෙකම ගත්තාම ඔයාලට මේ වැඩේ practically හොඳයිද නැද්ද කියලා හොඳට බලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. So then the other thing is your identified one, discuss with research experts in your field. Maybe your supervisor, maybe anybody else who is good in that particular area. So, for example, now we have certain students, they are picking certain different areas. And what we do is, if there are specialists in the department or in the faculty, we refer them to those experts and to have a discussion with those experts. So then what we can get to know is we can assure that this is going to be a wonderful area to study, or is it not advisable to go forward with this study. මේ ස්ටඩි එකත් එක්ක ඉස්සරහට යන්න පුළුවන්ද බැයිද කියන එක රිසර්ච් එක්ස්පර්ට්ස්ලා ඒ ෆීල්ඩ් එකේ ඉන්න අයට කියන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ අලුත් රිසර්ච් එකක ඉන්නවා නම් ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා මේක අලුත් ඒරියා එකක්ද, මේක වැඩක් නැද්ද, මේක කරන්න පුළුවන්ද කියන එක ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඔයාට සපෝට් එකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right. Now all of you, means most of you, you have done your first proposal presentation. Some of you got through the proposal presentation where you had a good research problem. And some of you all, you had to redo it because you didn't have the research problem well. Why you couldn't have a good research problem is maybe you have not identified a good research area or topic to study. Okay? So sometimes for the easiness, lazy at ළමයි කලින් බැච් වල කරපු රිසර්ච් වල පොඩි කැලලක් හොයාගෙන ඒක අරගෙන ඉඳලා මොකක් හරි කරනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් හිතෙන් හිතාගෙන ඉන්නවා මෙහෙම එකක් කරන්න හොඳයි කියලා. ඒ වගේ දේවල් අරගෙන. එහෙම කරන්න එපා. මේකේ හොඳ process එකක් තියෙනවා. මේ process එක පොඩ්ඩක් follow කරගත්තා නම් you can do a wonderful study. Right? You can identify a good area. Okay. So up to now, what I discussed is how you are going to identify or generate a good research area or research topic. Right. Let's dive into the other one. Other one is, it's about research problem. Okay, research problem. Now, let's see. When it comes to research problem, always it will be maybe based on a practical problem, but ultimately resort in a knowledge gap. Right. එතකොට ප්‍රොබ්ලම් එක තියෙන්නේ අවසානයේදී ප්‍රැක්ටිකල් එකකින් පටන් ගනි. නමුත් අවසානයේදී ප්‍රොබ්ලම් එක තියෙන්නේ නොලෙජ් එකේ ප්‍රොබ්ලම් එකක් තමයි තියෙන්නේ. මොන රිසර්ච් එකක් වුණත් ඒක තමයි තියෙන කතන්දරය. එතකොට අපි ඒක දැනගෙන ඉන්න ඕනේ. කොහෙද knowledge එකේ තමයි issue එක තියෙන්නේ. Right? Right. Now let's see what's a research problem in very brief. Okay. So this is one of the best definitions for a research problem that I found uh, when I read literature. So it's a puzzle, or an anomaly or inconsistency or a contradiction or a paradox, either in the existing body of knowledge or in the physical, material, social, cultural, and political processes. Okay. Simply, it will be a puzzle in the existing body of knowledge. Right? Again, a body of knowledge එකේ puzzle එකක් හරි එහෙම නැත්නම් practical puzzle එකක්. In the physical, material, social, cultural, political කියලා කියන්නේ practical world එකේ puzzle එකක්. So එතකොට ඔයාට idea එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන් මේක puzzle එකක් කියලා එහෙම නැත්නම් anomaly එකක්, inconsistency එකක්, contradiction එකක්, paradox එකක් කියලා. Puzzle is an means existing understanding is not sufficient to explain the phenomenon, right? Anomaly or paradox කියලා කියන්නේ it seems to be not logical. There is something happening, but it seems to be not logical, right? So it's contradictory to normal. Say, for example, now high employee engagement. If the employees are engaged very well in the organization's performance should go up. But here we see in practice, employees' engagement is very high, but still the organizational performance is low. Then that gives us an idea, right? So it's not logical. What is logical? Logical is employee engagement එක වැඩි නම් organizational performance වැඩි වෙනවා. හැබැයි එහෙම වෙන්නේ නැහැ. So ඒක හොඳ area එකක් study කරගන්න. Okay? So ඒක research problem එකකට අපිට convert කරන්න පුළුවන්. So let's see some examples. Okay? Now this we took it from Uyangodas's book. Okay? This example is there in that book. Why do farmers in the dry zone obtain agricultural loan from private money lenders? අපි එහෙම දැම්මොත් ඒක puzzle එකක් නෙමෙයි. දැන් අපි දන්නවා agriculture ඒ කියන්නේ farmers ලා dry zone එකේ ඉන්න farmers ලා ගොඩක් ණය ගන්නවා කෘෂි කර්මාන්තයේ යෙදෙන්න. එතකොට මේ ණය ගන්න මේගොල්ලෝ banks වලින් නෙමෙයි, formal lenders ලාගෙන් නෙමෙයි, private money lenders ලාගෙන්. ඒ කියන්නේ මුදලාල්ලාගෙන් වගේ ගන්නවා ගිනි පොලියට තමයි ගන්න. Okay? එතකොට මෙහෙම එකක් වෙනවා. එතකොට මේක හොඳට ඔබ්සර්ව් කරපුවාන් පස්සේ අපිට මේක puzzle එකක් විදිහට ගොඩනගා ගන්න පුළුවන්. Why do farmers turn to exploitative private money lenders when there is a formal banking sector, right, that provide loans at much lower interest rate? දැන් ඒ private money lenders ලාගෙන් ඇයි ණය ගන්නේ? බැංකු පද්ධතියක් තියෙනවා අඩු සාපේක්ෂව අඩු පොලියකට ණය දෙන. එහෙම තියෙද්දි ඇයි මේ farmersලා මේ private money lendersලාට යන්නේ කියන එක puzzle එකක්. මේක මොන puzzle එකක්ද? practice එකේ තියෙන puzzle එක. Right? Practice එකේ තියෙන puzzle එක. Then we have to see if there is a practical puzzle, we have to see whether there is a knowledge about this, whether there are previous published research to find out an answer. Scientific knowledge එක තියෙනවද? මෙන්න මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට උත්තර තියෙන. දැනට literature එකේ. එහෙනම් literature හොයන්න ඕන. දැනට මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට උත්තර හොයලා නැත්නම් මේ අපේ context එකේ you can do a good research to find out why this is happening. Okay? I believe that it will be understood. දැන් මට මේකෙන් ඕගොල්ලන්ට එකක් කියන්න දෙනවා. Practically problem එක තිබ්බට මදි ඒක sort out කරන්න scientific knowledge එක එහෙම නැත්නම් research based knowledge එක නැත්නම් ඒ practical problem එක තිබුණම කියලා අපිට research එකකට research problem එකක් දක්වා යන්න බෑ. Okay? Right. So another definition for research problem is it's a problem, the exploitation or investigation of which potentially contribute to production of some new knowledge. දැන් අලුත් knowledge එකක් produce වෙන ඒ problem එක explore කරාට පස්සේ අලුත් knowledge එකක් produce කරගන්න පුළුවන් නම් so it's a research problem. Okay. So then the other thing is research problem should be a conceptual query warrant scholarly investigation. එතකොට මේ systematic scholarly investigation එකක් අත්‍යවශ්‍ය වෙන conceptual query එකක් නැත්නම් ප්‍රශ්නයක් සංකල්පනාත්මක ප්‍රශ්නයක් කියන එකත් research problem එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. So research problem can be based in practice but still connected to a knowledge gap. Okay. So some examples about potential kind of research problems, but don't do these kind of research problems. These are done. Okay. Now, say for example, why do the individuals who do not want to experience backbiting tend to backbite others at workplace? Backbiting කියලා කියන්නේ අර නැති තැන නුගුණ කියනවා කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ නැති ඒ කියන්නේ අපි කියමු එම්ප්ලොයි කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා මැනේජර්ත් එක්ක අනිත් එම්ප්ලොයිගේ වරදවල් කියනවා අනිත් එම්ප්ලොයි මැනේජර් ගාව නැති තැන. Okay. ඒ කියන්නේ නැති තැන නුගුණ කියනවා අනිත් මිනිස්සු. ඒක තමයි backbiting කියලා කියන්නේ. පිටිපස්සේ ඉඳලා පහර දෙනවා කියන එක. So ඒකට මිනිස්සු කැමති නැහැ. කැමති නැති වුණත් ඇයි හැබැයි මිනිස්සු කරනවා ඒ වැඩේ. තමුන්ට එක්ස්පීරියන්ස් කරන්න කැමති නැහැ. හැබැයි ඒක කරනවා. හරි. දැන් අපි උදාහරණයකට තව එකක් ගත්තොත් එහෙම these are natural observations, right? General observations. Like some people they are talking against bribing. Okay? They are talking against bribing. But when it comes to grade 1 enrollment, we see that the same people, those who are against bribery, they go and try to bribe school principals. Or otherwise, they cheat in terms of addresses, the house and all those things. Okay. තමුන්ට නැති එකක ගිහිල්ලා ඔක්කොම documents ටික හොරට අදලා ළමයව දාගන්න try කරනවා. Okay. Those are some contradictory things that are interesting, but those are general research, not management research. How do female leaders shatter the glass ceiling in corporates in Sri Lanka? Glass ceiling. There is a concept known as glass ceiling, where females can see the top positions, but they can't go up to the top positions. That is known as glass ceiling, right? So උඩ බලලා පේන උඩට යන්න පුළුවන් කියලා, but ceiling එකක් තියෙනවා. එතනින් එහාට යන්න බෑ. හැබැයි සමහර leadersලා like Kasturi Wilson in Hema's CEO, she has gone to the top. She has broke or shattered the glass ceiling. How did she do that? So that is research, I think, that has been done. Okay. So then another thing, in apparel factories, using this sometimes filthy words and abusive supervision, right? Again, supervisors la, normal employees la, baninawa, samanlata kunharpa කියනවා. That has become a normal process. Okay. So why has abusive supervision been normalized in the apparel sector in Sri Lanka? එතකොට මේ abusive supervision, supportive supervision නෙමෙයි abusive supervision එක කොහොමද මේ apparel sector එකේ normalize වෙන්නේ? ඒක නිකන් ඒක නැත්තම් upset වගේ සමහරලාට workers හරි. හද්දෙන් කතා කරේ නැත්තම් කුණුහරුපයක් කියලා වෙන්නේ නැත්තම් ඒක ඒ industry එකේ නෙමෙයි වගේ එකක් තියෙනවා. Then some other things like researchers have found that OCB, organization citizenship behavior, leads to positive organizational outcomes. At the same time, a few researchers suggest that the negative outcomes associated with OCB too. So OCB කියන එක positive කියලා තියෙනවා, negative කියලා තියෙනවා. It's not clear how OCB leads to negative organizational outcomes. Okay? So then it's a wonderful area to study. Now, these are just examples, and most of these research have already done. Okay? මේවා කරලා තියෙන්නේ ඒ නිසා මේවා කරන එක තේරුමක් නැහැ. Then we know what a research problem is, and now we'll see different types of research gaps that we can establish. And especially, there are two types of gaps that we can see. One is performance gap or practical gap, and the other one is known as literature-based gaps or knowledge gaps. When it comes to knowledge gaps, there are different types of gaps that scholars have identified. out of these things, empirical gap is one. Theoretical gap and methodological gaps are also there. Here, I will not talk about theoretical gap and methodological gap because at your stage, at undergraduate level, justifying an empirical gap is more than enough. Right? More than enough. So therefore, let's understand how to establish a performance gap, practical and literature gap. Okay? Now, this is one example. One of my students in 2023, she did about, this is the practical issue. Practical issue is, now in gig economy, we know that there are different platforms like Fiverr, and there are so many other, but most of the Sri Lankans are working in Fiverr.com. Okay, so then this those who are working or those who have accounts in Fiverr.com, they are struggling. Okay? Some of them are struggling. Some of them are doing really well. Some of them are struggling. So we saw that there is a failure of some of the Sri Lankan gig workers registered in Fiverr because they have registered for a long time, but they don't get gigs. Gigs කියලා කියනවා අපිට ඒ කියන්නේ contracts එන එහෙම contracts එන්න නැතුව දිනනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ identify කරගෙන තියෙනවා මේම Fiverr එකේ register වෙලා ඉන්නවා නමුත් business නැහැ. Okay, so ඒක. ඒතකොට මේක justify කරන්න එයා පාවිච්චි කරපු දේවල් ගොඩක් තියෙනවා. ඒවෙන් දෙකක් තමයි. She basically observed what's happening in FB pages, okay, where the gig workers are in. Okay, so then when she went through some of the posts that they have posted, they are talking about this issue. So this is an evidence that she brought to justify that some of the gig workers are struggling or failing in Fiverr platform. Okay? So you can think of, right, rather than just doing preliminary investigation by giving the questionnaire, you can think of bringing evidences to prove that there is a problem. Okay? That is one thing. Then on top of this, she went on to do a preliminary study too, and she interviewed a lot of people, those who engaged in Fiverr, and then she could get to know that there are failures in Fiverr. Okay. So then basically she looked at two things. She wrote Facebook captions, at the same time interview data to prove the practical problem. So this is one example that you can start with from a practical problem, that is performance gap. Okay. Now let's see some other performance gap also. When you justify a performance gap, especially, you have to show the expected level and the actual level. Okay. This is another example, like sales employees need to display real commitment to their customers. Customers ලා හොඳ commitment එකක් දෙන්න ඕනේ. නැත්නම් හොඳ service එකක් දෙන්න. But when you go to some shops, on contrary, commitment to customer service has reduced among the sales employees in textile shops. Okay? Customers feel that the sales employees are unhelpful. Then අපි සමහර shops වලට ගියාම අපිට තේරෙනවා right මේගොල්ලෝ මේ හිටියට වැඩක් නැහැ ඒගොල්ලෝ support කරන්නේ. ඒතකොට ඒ service එක poor. හැබැයි company එක එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ shop එක හොඳ service එකක් දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. හැබැයි ඒක ඇත්තට දකින්න නැහැ. මේකෙන් ගන්න පුළුවන් අපිට idea එකක්. හරි මෙතන practical problem එකක් තියෙනවා කියන එක. ඒ practical problem එක base කරගෙන අපිට literature හොයන්න යන්න පුළුවන්. Okay. Another one, like organizations are keen in ensuring inclusion, such as psychological safety, allowing equal involvement in the work groups, provide opportunities to make decisions for everyone, recognizing without discrimination. Okay? That is the expected level from the employee's perspective. But actually, we'll say, if the employee say, my boss had the informal chat with others about my mistakes during the times when I was not there. Then මන් නැති තැන මගේ mistakes මගේ boss අනිත් අයත් එක්ක කතා කරනවා. Also, my ideas were not considered when they took some important decisions about me. Okay. So this shows the actual level is not like it's deviated from the expected level. Okay. එතකොට ඕගොල්ලන්ට කරන්න තියෙන එක විදිහක් තමයි performance gap එකක් කියන එක justify කරන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ expected level එකයි actual level එකයි අතර practical issue එකක් තියෙනවා නම් practical gap එකක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒකට අපි කියනවා performance gap එකක්. මේක research problem එකක් justify කරගන්න හොඳ starting point එකක් වෙනවා. හොඳ starting point එකක් වෙනවා. Right. So next one is even if you have a practical problem, you have to have an empirical gap at least. Right. දැන් මම කිව්වා methodological gap, theoretical gap මම කතා කරන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද ඕගොල්ලන්ට undergraduate level එකේ නෙමෙයි ඊළඟ level වලට ගියාම ඒවා address කරගන්න පුළුවන්. At least ඕගොල්ලෝ undergraduate level එකේ you have to try to prove an empirical gap. Okay. So an empirical gap is this is like there are theoretical frameworks existing, okay, but they have not been adequately tested. A framework adequately test කරලා නැත්තම් or validate කරලා නැත්තම් through observations or experimentation means through real data, okay, in real world setting. So that's an empirical gap. Okay. Now let's see some examples also. So then that means there is a proposed theory maybe, right? There is something, but we don't have empirical data to support or refute the theory or the model. So then we have to collect data different. So then our context is different. In this context, whether it happens like the other context, then you can see whether the same theory is happening here or not. Okay. So those kind of contextual gaps can be justified. Now, in order to justify this contextual gap, you have to have good literature review. From the literature review එකක් කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒ literature review එකෙන් තමයි empirical gap එක justify කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. Now let's see some examples. Okay. Now, so this is one of the examples. Learning orientation and marketing orientation of firms have been found to influence effectiveness of firms in America, Australia, and Europe. Okay. So in these contexts, this link of learning orientation and market orientation of firms have been identified, and it has been identified that it's impacting effectiveness of firms. Further, there is evidence that Sri Lanka is different from those in terms of economic development, culture, etc. So, is there a positive relationship between learning orientation and market orientation of Sri Lankan firms and their effectiveness? Okay. So, something has been done in other contexts, and you justify that our context is different, and then bring and ask the question whether the same result can happen in our context. Okay, that is one. Then another one is that, like as shown in this research, in their review paper, most of the articles on sustainability tourism are produced by scholars from developed nations or based on developed nations. Some studies on sustainable tourism in Eastern Asian contexts, such as in China, right, and Philippines, and so on. However, there is a dearth of research on sustainable tourism in South Asian region. Okay. In this case, researchers have to argue that South Asian region is different to our other East Asian context. Right? So then, if it is so, then there is a ground to do a contextual, means prove a contextual gap, which is we have to collect data from our context, and we have to see whether the previous theories or models are accepted or not. Okay. So that is context-specific empirical gap. Right. So now we discussed about two things: performance gap and empirical gap or contextual gap. If we look at, by combining all these attributes of a good research problem, it's like this. First thing, If it is a good research problem, it should be valuable. That is, it should be significant, or it should have worth. Valuable වෙන්න ඕනේ. වටිනාකමක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. කොහොමද වටිනාකම ගේන්නේ? වටිනාකම ගේන්න නම් it should be an original work. Right. So it should bring fresh knowledge. In the sense, it should generate new knowledge. අලුත් knowledge එකක් generate කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒක හොඳ research problem එකක් වෙනවා. And then we have to look at the practical value. Will the answering of research problem help the industries to grow or industries to solve a problem, or otherwise to solve a problem in the society? Society එක හරි industry එකේ හරි ප්‍රශ්නයකට උත්තරයක් හොයන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන knowledge එක ඒකෙන් ගේනවා නම් අපේ research එකෙන් it's a valuable research. And you can look at your personal value also, whether that research will support you in the future. Say, for example, if you do a good research area, if you find out a new research area and a futuristic research area, it will benefit you, because in undergraduate level, you will do this research. When you go to master's or PhD, you can continue the research. So when you go to master's and PhD, you have almost done 50% of the work, right? 50% of the work means you have read the area in deep. Okay. So then it will be beneficial for you. That is not regarded really to identify the significance of the research. Originality, that is the knowledge contribution plus practical value, has to be there. If it is not there, it's not a good research. Okay. So then the other thing is, as we discussed in the topic identification, there should be feasibility. Okay. ඒක මේ අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ. Access to data is critical. Time, financial and other resources, having a supervisor, and your personal competency, all these things are important to ensure that it is feasible to do. ප්‍රශ්නේ වැදගත් වෙන්නත් ඕනේ, කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නත් ඕනේ. ඔන්න ඔය ලක්ෂණ දෙකම තියෙනවා නම් තමයි it will be a good research problem. Okay. Right. So now we have discussed a lot. Now I would like to invite Sahan to share his exploration and his work up to now. So he has not exactly finalized the research problem, but he has tried very well to justify the research problem. Now let's see, let's watch how Sahan is trying to establish the research problem or formulate the research problem. Now, Sahan, would like to invite you to share your experience.
Thank you, sir. Hope you guys can see my screen and hear me properly. Rasika sir, can you confirm?
Yeah, it's appearing, I think, still not appeared. Okay, now it's okay, fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you again, Rasika sir, for giving me this chance to share my experience on this journey. So, I think that most of you guys are from like fourth year and third year. You had a pace, like fourth years had a pace where we had a problem. What actually we are doing here? මොකද්ද මේ අපි කරන්න කියලා ඒතර වෙලාවක් තිබ්බ. ඒතකොට for third years, I think that most of you guys have no clue about what you are going to do. So believe me, guys, I had the same problem when I was in third year, and that's where the point, the area has to be interested, like Rasika sir mentioned, has come into play. So when it comes to this concept is personally very interesting for me. So because I am a very lazy person, and not a bit, actually I am a very lazy person. So to get around that habit, I have read a book called Deep Work by Carl Newport. So by like reading that, I have identified the concept called flow. So I thought of like, because this concept is very valuable for me, I thought of doing my research on this concept. So that was my personal interest, and like after that, I like to observe that there's a practical problem. I have talked with my supervisor, Dr. Rasika, and we have, by conversation, doing conversations, we have tried to narrow down this. So to give a brief about this concept, uh, flow state is something like if you look at the surf, you can see like to do a very good surf, to ride a very good wave, you have to be very highly concentrated and highly focused, and you have to love what you are doing. So when you are in this state, what happens is you have what we call your challenge and your skill gets matched, and you fully immerse on the task at hand, and you feel the time flies by. So for an example, when you are for boys, when you are playing a game, you start at around 4 p.m. and you don't know actually how when the like how the time flied. When you again look at the clock, the time is like 7, something like that. So that's how I got into this concept. And so, like Rasika sir mentioned, first, I have like used the funnel approach to narrow down this concept into our the study area, the study context, where this Sri Lanka. And when it comes to this concept, uh, I have first introduced what this concept is, generally what flow state is, and by giving a definition and giving an understanding about flow state, I like create the foundation, create the basement for my research. And then after that, I narrow it down again by saying why this is important. So to do this research, it has to be important. And like Rasika sir mentioned, there has to be literature saying this concept is important. So um, likewise, I have identified some importance of this concept like job performance, motivation, productivity, quality of work, etc. And again, I have talked about why we have to do research on this, why it is important to do a research based on over 40 years research. I have identified that this concept is trending because of main two reasons, as I have put it in here. So like in this slide and this slide, I have just actually narrowed it down to the industry that I'm going to be studying in the like the unit that I'm going to be studying on. Like I'm going to be studying on how this flow state happens, what are the challenges and the strategies they use in the ICT industry, and particularly focusing on top managers. So I have brought some literature why why these things are important, why top manager, why why if I look at the concept නම flow state කියන concept එක top managers ළඟ තියෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා බැලුවා. ඒක කොහොමද practically ඇයි ඒක වැදගත් වෙන්නේ මට පුළුවන් general employee කෙනෙක්ගේ බලන්න. මට පුළුවන් මේක වෙන context එක වෙන unit එකක බලන්න. ඒත් ඇයි මම top managers ලවම මේකට choose කරන්න කියන එකට rationale එක. ඒ rationale එක build කරන්න තමයි මම මෙන්න මේ විදියට literature ගෙනල්ලා ඒක මම මේ ගෙනල්ලා පෙන්නුවේ. මෙන්න මේ හේතු නිසා තමයි මේ top managers ලව කියන කට්ටිය තෝරගත්තේ කියන එක. So to get to the main actual reason. So if you look, like I have mentioned before, when it comes to flow state, it is a peak level, and in that peak level, your productivity is very high. And because of that, like when it comes to top managers in the ICT industry, particularly, like I have mentioned that in this sector here also, like in the ICT industry, that the industry is going to be converted into the routine task will be converted into be done by mainly AI. So the value will be given to people who can create new value. And like research says, creativity can be enhanced by using this flow state. And in this industry, top managers particularly they have to face difficult situations, they have to make complex decisions when it comes to their day-to-day um, life. And because of that, they need to have a very good cognitive ability. And to have a cognitive ability, I have wrote the rationale saying that to have a Sri Lanka මේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ඉන්න මේ prostate එක ගැන කරපු research නැති so and because I have also mentioned that by getting information from the uh, uh, well-defined sources, Sri Lanka I have said Sri Lanka is a collectivistic culture. So because and also I have found that most of the uh, even though research have mostly done in individualistic countries, they have found that collectivistic cultures show strong alignment between challenge, skill, balance, and flow, a thing like that. So basically, it means that in collectivistic cultures කියන ඒවායේ මෙන්න මේ flow එක කියන එක සම්බන්ධ flow එක කියන එක වැඩි when it comes to මේ challenge, skill, balance එක කියන එක වැඩි කියන එක. එතකොට මම අඳුරගත්ත දේ තමයි ගොඩක් රිසර්ච් වුණාට ඉන්ඩිවිජුවලිස්ටික් කන්ට්‍රීස් වල එයාලම හොයාගෙන තියෙනවා කරපු රිසර්ච් වල හොයාගෙන තියෙනවා කලෙක්ටිවිස්ටික් කල්චර්ස් වල මේ alignment එක වැඩි. But most of the because most of the research have done in individualistic countries, I have got the rationale to say that